Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell y'all something. There is nothing more terrifying to a man than a woman who just stops caring. See, when you argue, he thinks he still got a grip on you. When you mad, he knows you still invested. You send him long texts, he reading every third word. But he knows you still care. Power ain't about loud words or drama. It ain't about chasing or begging or crying on the phone at 2 a.m. hoping he'll finally call you back. Real power shows up when you reclaim your peace. That calm, unshakable peace that says, I'm good, with or without you. Let me break it down for you. Too many times we tie our power to a person, usually the one who gives us the most heartache. We think if I can just get him to love me, to notice me, to stay. And before you know it, we're pouring out every ounce of our energy chasing a feeling that's already running out the door. We lose our peace in the process, our sleep, our confidence, our joy, all for a man who may not even realize what he has until it's gone. But peace is where your power lives. When you reclaim your peace, it's like putting on armor that no one can penetrate. It's a calm that doesn't shake because your worth isn't tied up in someone else's actions or feelings. Peace means you've decided that your happiness and your value come from within, not from texts, not from calls, not from his attention. It's your internal sanctuary, a place no one can invade unless you let them in. When a woman chooses peace over pain, she steps into a power that's magnetic and undeniable. It's a power that says, I am complete. I am enough. And when you walk around with that energy, you're sending a signal loud and clear. You're telling the world, and most importantly, him, that you're not here to settle for less than you deserve. You're not here to be someone's second choice or backup plan. And you know what happens when a man senses that you've reclaimed your peace? He panics, because peace changes the game. It's no longer about the chase or the drama. It's about presence and balance. When you're peaceful, you don't call or text first. You don't rearrange your schedule just in case he wants to see you. You don't invest your energy trying to decode every text or social media post. You simply exist in your power, doing your thing, living your life. This peace creates a space where a man realizes what he's missing, not because you told him, but because he feels it. He feels the absence of your chaos and the presence of your calm. That absence of anxiety, that absence of desperation suddenly makes him question what he took for granted. It makes him panic because the security blanket he had, your emotional availability, is no longer there. Peace also means boundaries. When you reclaim your peace, you learn to say no without guilt. You stop allowing behaviors that disrespect you. You stop excusing late texts, missed calls, empty promises, or anything that diminishes your self-worth. And here's the thing, boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're gates that protect your heart and your happiness. When you start protecting your peace, you become unpredictable in the best way, not because you're playing games, but because you're valuing yourself. You're no longer available 24/7. You don't entertain excuses. You don't put up with disrespect. This shift confuses a man at first. He wonders what changed, but what really changed is you remembered your value. You stopped sacrificing your mental and emotional health for someone who wasn't reciprocating. This power doesn't come overnight. It takes time. It takes work. It means sitting with yourself when it hurts, learning to love your own company, and making peace with being alone if necessary. But once you reach that place, once you reclaim your peace, you'll never go back. You'll never chase chaos disguised as love. And here's another truth. A man doesn't panic because he's a bad guy. He panics because your peace highlights his own insecurities and shortcomings. It forces him to look at what he's doing and what he's losing. But that panic is your power showing up loud and clear. It's the natural reaction to a woman who's no longer chasing, but choosing herself instead. So remember this. Power isn't in the noise you make trying to get him to notice you. Power is in the quiet strength of your peace. It's in the calm confidence that you don't need anyone's validation to feel whole. It's in the freedom to live your life fully without being tied to his approval or attention. When you reclaim your peace, you step into a power so strong, it moves mountains and changes the dynamics of your relationship. And that, my friend, is where real transformation begins. You ever notice how sometimes the quietest moments say the loudest things? It's crazy how much a man can pick up on your silence, more than all the yelling, crying, or arguing you ever did. Because silence ain't just the absence of noise, it's a message. It's a statement. When you stop talking, when you stop reacting, when you stop chasing, you're sending a signal louder than any words ever could. Men pay attention to silence because it's real, it's unfiltered. It's a place where all the pretending stops. When you're not chasing, when you're not trying to fix or explain or convince, that silence hits him like a freight train. Suddenly, he's sitting there wondering, what's wrong? Why isn't she saying anything? Why is she calling? Why isn't she here like she used to be? Because in that quiet, something's changed, and a man can feel it deep down in his gut. See, a lot of us women get caught up in talking. We try to fix things with words. We pour our hearts out, explain every feeling over and over again, hoping to be understood or to make things better. But what happens when those words stop? What happens when the texts don't come? When the calls dry up? When you stop chasing? The silence creates space. Space for him to think, space for him to feel, space for him to realize that maybe he took you for granted. When you stop chasing, something powerful happens. He starts wondering. He wonders if you're done. He wonders if someone else is stepping in or if you've just given up completely. The thing is, chasing is like a safety net for him. It's a guarantee that you're there, always. But when you step back, when you reclaim your time and your energy, that safety net disappears. And that makes him uneasy. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about manipulation. It's about valuing yourself enough to not put your whole happiness in someone else's hands. When you stop chasing, you're saying, I'm worth more than crumbs. I'm worth respect and effort. And when a man realizes you're no longer running after him, he starts to question everything. His actions, his words, and most importantly, his feelings. Wondering can turn into panic real quick because he's confronted with a truth he's been avoiding. Without you chasing, he has to step up or walk away. And that's a scary place for him to be, especially if he's been comfortable in a place where you did all the work. When you chase, it gives him an easy way out. But when you don't, he's forced to decide what he really wants. Silence also forces him to fill the gaps. When you stop talking, he has to create his own narrative. And 9 times out of 10, that narrative includes questions about what he did wrong or what he lost. You giving him silence instead of drama is like giving him a mirror. He can't ignore what he sees. It's uncomfortable, and that discomfort often makes him reconsider how he treated you. You ever notice how quiet people seem stronger? That's because they've stopped wasting energy on noise. They've stopped chasing things that don't serve them. And that strength in silence, it's magnetic. It pulls people in, not because you're desperate, but because you're confident and grounded in yourself. And men can't help but take notice when a woman carries herself like that. When you stop chasing, your silence becomes a powerful force. It's no longer about begging or pleading for attention. It's about letting go and trusting that what's meant for you will come without you having to run after it. That kind of peace confuses a man at first because it's unexpected. He's used to the chase, the drama, the constant reassurance. But when you stop, the game changes. So what does all this mean? It means that silence is your ally. It means that stepping back isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It means that when you stop chasing, you give yourself a chance to breathe, to grow, and to attract the kind of love that's willing to meet you halfway. And trust me, that silence, it speaks volumes. Detachment isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional roller coaster that comes with trying to control someone else's feelings or actions. When you detach, you send the loudest message possible without saying a single word. It's a statement that says, I'm not here to be your emotional doormat. I'm not here to be at your beck and call. I'm here to respect myself first. That kind of detachment, it shakes the foundation of any relationship where control and expectations have been one-sided. You see, we often forget that no matter how much we want to change someone or fix their behavior, we simply can't control them. You can't make a man love you, respect you, or show up the way you want him to. That's a truth that's hard to swallow, but it's liberating once you accept it. What you can control is how much access you give him to your life, your emotions, and your energy. Controlling access is about boundaries. It's about deciding who gets to be part of your world and on what terms. When you stop caring in the way that drains you, you naturally start to limit access. You don't answer every call, reply to every text, or make yourself available just because he's there. Instead, you protect your peace by being selective. This selectiveness, it's powerful. It sends a message that your time and energy are valuable. When a woman detaches and controls access, she becomes unpredictable. And that unpredictability is exactly what shakes a man to his core. Men are creatures of habit and routine. They like knowing where they stand and having a predictable pattern. But when you suddenly pull back, stop caring in the ways they expect, and start living your life on your own terms, it flips the script. This unpredictability isn't about playing mind games or being manipulative. It's about reclaiming your freedom and refusing to be defined by someone else's behavior. When a man sees that you're no longer waiting by the phone, no longer waiting for validation, no longer bending over backwards to please him, it makes him question everything. He wonders, did I lose her? What did I do wrong? Because the woman who stops caring becomes a mystery he can't solve. And that mystery is powerful. It pulls him in, not because you're chasing him, but because you're no longer available on his terms. You've reset the rules. You've taken back your power. And a man who is used to control or complacency suddenly finds himself in unfamiliar territory. Detachment also means you're no longer dependent on his approval or attention to feel good about yourself. You're standing firm in your worth, independent of his actions. That kind of self-respect radiates confidence, and confidence is magnetic. It's like a silent siren calling to those who respect and value you, and it creates distance for those who don't. When you control access, you're saying you won't be taken for granted anymore. You won't be the person who's always available, always forgetting, always making excuses. Instead, you set the terms of engagement. You choose when and how to engage. And when he realizes he can't just slide back into your life whenever he pleases, he starts to feel that panic. That panic comes from losing control, from realizing that the comfortable spot he had with you is no longer guaranteed. When you detach, control, access, and stop carrying it in ways that drain you, you become a force that can't be ignored. You become someone who demands respect, not through words, but through action. This shift challenges him to either step up or step aside, because a woman who has reclaimed her peace and power won't settle for anything less than what she deserves. And when you embody that, it changes the whole dynamic. It changes how he sees you. So remember, detachment isn't about losing love or shutting people out. It's about loving yourself enough to protect your peace. It's about controlling what you can, your energy, your time, your boundaries, and letting go of what you can't. His actions, his feelings, his choices. When you do that, you become unpredictable, you become powerful, you become unshakable, and that, my friend, is when he really starts to panic. There's a kind of power that most people never fully understand until they live it, a power that comes not from control, not from noise or drama, but from something much deeper. It's the power that rises when you reclaim your peace. When you stop tying your worth to someone else's actions or opinions, when you refuse to let your happiness depend on someone showing up the way you want, you tap into a strength that no one can take away. That peace, it's a fortress. It's a place where you stand tall, calm, and steady, no matter what's going on outside. And here's the thing, when you reclaim your peace, the noise around you starts to fade. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop needing to justify your feelings. That's when the silence kicks in. And oh, a man hears that silence louder than any words you ever spoke. He notices when you're quiet, when you're not reacting, when you're no longer the person jumping at every call or message. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's a signal. It's telling him, you're no longer emotionally available in the way you used to be. When you stop chasing, that silence grows even louder. You stop putting in all the effort to reach out, to make plans, to keep the conversation going. You stop begging for attention or validation. And that's when he starts wondering why you've changed, wondering if you're done, wondering if someone else has captured your heart or if you've finally realized your worth. This wondering can be uncomfortable for him because it means the easy path is gone. The path where you did all the work and he showed up only when it suited him. Detachment becomes the loudest message you can send in all of this. When you detach, you're not saying you don't care. You're saying you care about yourself enough to stop getting caught in the emotional tug-of-war. You're saying you refuse to lose your peace for someone who won't fight to keep you. Detachment is the act of stepping back and saying, I'm done chasing something that doesn't want to catch me. It's the ultimate boundary, the clearest line drawn in the sand. You can't control what he thinks or does, but you can control how much access he has to your life and your heart. This is where your power really shines. You decide who gets your time, your attention, and your love, and on your terms. You don't have to make yourself available every time he calls or texts. You don't have to sacrifice your peace trying to make him see what he's losing. When you take control of access, you reclaim your dignity and your self-respect. In all these things, the peace you reclaim, the silence you hold, the chasing you stop, the detachment you practice, they combine to make you unpredictable, not because you're playing games, but because you're living authentically. You're no longer defined by his actions or approval. You're showing up for yourself first and foremost. That unpredictability is what shakes a man to his core, because suddenly the woman he thought he knew becomes someone new, someone who doesn't wait on him to feel whole, someone who doesn't break down over uncertainty or inconsistency. When a woman reaches this level of power, it forces a man to face reality. It forces him to see what he's risking losing And often that realization sends him into a panic because he's confronted with the fact that you're not the same woman who chased, begged, and tolerated. You've grown, you've changed, and you've taken your peace with you. That panic is a sign not of weakness in you, but of strength. It's proof that when a woman stops caring the way she used to, when she detaches and reclaims her life, she becomes unstoppable. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real power behind silence, detachment, and peace. There's a power that rises when you reclaim your peace, when you stop letting someone else's actions dictate your happiness and your worth. It's a quiet power, not flashy or loud, but strong enough to change everything around you. When you have peace inside, you're no longer frantic to be noticed or to be validated. That peace creates a calm that surrounds you, and people feel it. Especially the man you once gave so much energy to. He senses the shift because when you reclaim your peace, you start speaking a new language, one of quiet confidence and self-respect. Silence becomes your loudest voice. A man doesn't just hear silence, he feels it deep down. It carries weight and meaning beyond words. When you stop talking, stop reacting to his games or neglect, when you stop being the one who always reaches out first, your silence tells him something he can't ignore. You're not here chasing anymore. That silence is louder than any argument or explanation because it's real and it's final. It signals that you've stepped back, that you're guarding your heart now, and that you're non-available on demand. And when you stop chasing, he starts wondering. That's the game changer. Because chasing is like giving a man permission to be complacent. It's like telling him that no matter what, you'll be there. But when you stop that chase, when you stop making yourself so accessible, he's forced to face the possibility that he could lose you. Wondering kicks in, wondering if you're really done, wondering if someone else is taking your place, wondering what he should have done differently. And that wondering can spiral into panic because suddenly the easy road has vanished. That's where detachment plays its part. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring enough about yourself to step back emotionally. It's the loudest message you can send without shouting. I am done losing myself trying to make this work alone. Detachment is drawing a boundary so clear that it stops the emotional chaos. You're telling him through your actions, not your words, that you're not dependent on his validation. You're telling him you respect yourself enough not to be caught in the cycle of disappointment and hope. You can't control how he feels or what he does. That's a truth that many women struggle with because it feels like giving up. But the real control comes in deciding how much access you allow him to have to your time, your energy, your heart. When you control access, you protect your peace. You decide when to engage, when to step back, and when to walk away. This control is your power. It says, I'm not just here to be used when it's convenient. I'm here on my own terms. And that power, that self-respect, changes the entire dynamic. When you combine peace, silence, the end of chasing, detachment, and controlling access, you become unpredictable in the best way possible. Not unpredictable because you're playing games, but because you've stopped playing by his rules. You've rewritten the script by choosing yourself first. That unpredictability shakes a man because it takes away his sense of control and comfort. He realizes you're no longer the easy option. He realizes he has to step up or step aside. That's when the panic starts. He panics not because you're petty or vengeful, but because you become a woman who won't settle for less than she deserves. You become someone who values her peace above the chaos, who knows her worth without his approval, and who controls the terms of her love and attention. And that shift, that power, is what makes him realize what he might lose. So remember, the real strength isn't in the noise or the chase. It's in the quiet power of peace, the meaningful silence, the letting go of control, and the boundaries you set by controlling access. When you live in that power, you don't just survive, you thrive. And that more than anything else makes a man panic because he's faced with a woman who's finally free. Power isn't loud. It isn't about who shouts the most or who's the most desperate for attention. Real power is quiet, steady, and comes when you reclaim your peace. That peace is like a fortress around your heart, your mind, your soul. It's the calm that says, I'm good with or without you. When you reclaim your peace, you stop giving away your power to someone else's actions or moods. You stop letting your happiness depend on texts, calls, or any kind of attention from him. You create a space where you are whole, complete, and not chasing after validation. And that peace comes with silence, deep, meaningful silence. A man hears your silence louder than your words. That silence is a language all on its own. When you stop reacting to his games, when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop being the one who always reaches out first, your silence tells him something undeniable. You're no longer available on his terms. Silence carries weight. It's real. It's final. And men can't help but notice when you step back into that quiet. When you stop chasing, you take away the safety net that kept him comfortable. Chasing says, no matter what, I'm here. It's like telling him, I'll wait for you no matter how long it takes. But when you stop chasing, he starts wondering if you're really done, wondering if someone else has taken your place, wondering what he should have done differently. That wondering creates a ripple effect that can turn into panic because suddenly he's forced to confront what he's risking losing. The woman who once ran after him is now walking away. That's where detachment comes in. Detachment isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about caring enough about yourself to step back emotionally. It's the loudest message you can send without uttering a word. It says, I'm done losing myself trying to make this work alone. Detachment is a boundary, a line drawn firmly in the sand. You're telling him through your actions that you respect yourself enough not to be caught in a cycle of disappointment. You're no longer dependent on his validation or approval to feel worthy. You can't control him, but you can control how much access he has to you, your time, your energy, your heart. Controlling access is your power. You decide when and how you engage. You don't have to be available every time he calls or texts. You don't have to sacrifice your peace trying to prove your worth. When you control access, you protect yourself. You're no longer the easy option. You become a prize to be earned, not a given. And when you combine all this, reclaim peace, silence, no chasing, detachment, and controlled access, you become unpredictable. Not in a game-playing way, but because you're no longer defined by his actions or expectations. You live on your own terms. And that unpredictability shakes a man to his core. Men like routine, control, and knowing their place. When you step out of that predictable pattern, it throws him off balance. He's no longer sure how to read you or what to expect, and that uncertainty makes him uneasy. A woman who stops caring in the old ways becomes a mystery. She's no longer accessible for cheap reassurance or drama. She's no longer the woman who bends over backward to keep the peace at her own expense. Instead, she carries herself with a quiet confidence that demands respect. That shift sends a signal stronger than any words could, a signal that you've taken your power back. And that, my friends, is when he panics. Not because you're playing tricks or being petty, but because you've become a force that refuses to be ignored or taken for granted. You've become someone who values her peace more than a broken cycle. You've become someone who knows her worth and won't settle for less. That's the real power in silence, detachment, and self-control. It's the power that shakes a man to his core and changes the game forever.